Hello and welcome to another video from Flash Jazz Cat. What have we got here? Well, we've got another 130XE motherboard. I've had to do a lot of work on this one before we even started filming. Maybe I should have filmed it last week. I could have flipped the camera on. I just finished another video. I wasn't feeling too positive about things in general because it seems that a lot of the stuff I get nowadays just has unexpected problems, and I never really enjoy having to explain to the client that there's going to be additional costs because I had to do extra unexpected work. Nevertheless, there it is. The case for this one, just to give you some context. So this is the case. It's not in bad condition. The keyboard isn't so nice. It's quite yellowed on some of the keys. We can't really do anything about that at the moment in the UK. Because the weather's been absolutely terrible. But this particular machine, we'll go through what was actually sent in. But first, the sponsor for this video is of course PCBWay.com. Now, as well as having 10 years of experience in the field of PCB prototyping and manufacture, they also offer services such as CNC machining and 3D printing and an instant quote system. Now, this being the festive time of year, you will definitely want to check out the PCBWay Big Christmas Sales. As well as free coupons, they're also offering free Christmas PCB prototyping, Christmas sales with up to 50% off, and unboxing blind boxes with your chance to get a free module. So if you're in need of a prototype PCB or any of the other services on offer, pop down to PCBWay today. Right, so we're going to have the more or less ubiquitous Ultimate 1MB. Now the interesting thing about these upgrades is they're actually, I think they were previously installed in another machine, but the customer has taken these things out of the other machine and he wants them basically installed in this XE. So we assume they all work. We've got a VBXE here, which needs the headers attached to it. It doesn't look like this has been in another machine because there's no sign of any soldering or headers here. And obviously these parts have to be connected, so I'll have to put some headers on this. There's the adapter for the VBXE. What else have we got? We've got a Spectre AV. Now this is, it's a kind of a UAV, Ultimate Atari Video work-alike. I don't think the quality is quite as good. It's not quite such a refined design, but I mean it does work and it's better than stock video. And it certainly adds that heft to the characters when you look at them on the screen. They can look a bit spidery with the original video. PokeyMAX we've got here. This is a PokeyMAX 2. It's in the little dual case. I used to have a lot of them. I don't know what happened to them. I probably lost them all when I moved house. We've also got, I'll have to sort of do a little aside here. This machine already has an SRAM board in it. Now no doubt somebody's going to shout at me in the comments here because this is an older revision SRAM board. This is the one the client sent in with the machine. Now he wants Rapidus in the machine, so I think the reason that he sent in the SRAM was because there's some sort of law, I mean that in the LORE sense, folklore, that the SRAM board is beneficial stability wise if you're going to put Rapidus in the machine. Whether that's actually true or not, I've seen no particular evidence of it, but anyway, that's why I sent that in. Now the problem is, or the problem as I perceived it anyway, with this one is that it doesn't have any connection for external select. So I ordered this from Retro Lemon on the client's behalf anyway, and thanks to Jakob at Retro Lemon for the unbelievably quick delivery. I had a little chat with him beforehand because I was interested in what happened to the Savo boards. I didn't really object to the Savo boards. It was quite a good idea, and it was something I would have entertained, the idea of putting it in this machine. But they're out of stock and have been for a while, so I don't know what the hell the manufacturer of the Savo boards has been doing. Apparently the stuff's been ordered but never turned up, so that we abandoned that idea. But I bought this anyway and it arrived the next morning. So top marks to Jakob at Retro Lemon. Now the reason I did that is because this has the external select, which I believe is an input, and that will allow external PBI devices to override this internal SRAM. It has, as a courtesy, it has things like Ultimate 1MB connections, IRQ connection for VBXE. It just breaks out those CPU signals, although it's unlikely that I'll use the phase 2 clock pin on here, because I've now preferred to take it from the ECI connector here, because that's the buffered signal coming from here. But anyway, that's why I've bought this. So I've ordered this, and as far as I can establish, this is going to be necessary for operation with Rapidus and other PBI devices. If it wasn't for Rapidus, well, actually, VBXE's also got a connection to external select because this has its own SRAM on it. And that will override the onboard RAM depending on when you open the VRAM window. So that's why I did that. So we've got, this is going to become redundant, unfortunately, but I was going to swap it out for the other one and just give this back to the client, of course. The other thing he sent in was the FREDDIE replacement here. I don't know if that's necessary. I mean, we can put it in. I've put a socket under the FREDDIE chip. Whether it has any material benefit on stability or what, I don't know. This is quite an old one. It's it looks like, yeah, this is the same vintage as the SRAM board that was sent in. Whether that makes any difference on it, I don't know. I think this is the one that mandates the use of the SRAM board. There's another FREDDIE replacement which can be used with DRAM, but I don't think this is it. And yet another thing that was sent in was this, which is I think this is called P-Covox from the Atari shop. But this, I've told the client after the event, I didn't realise he was going to send this in. Probably got a bit confused when we were talking about it. He doesn't need that because, of course, PokeyMAX is going to provide Covox. And in my opinion, it's superior because this is software detectable Covox. So the ultimate 1 megabyte firmware, when I come to upgrade it and install the plugins, can sense the Covox, and it just gives you that much more software control from the setup menu, so that's better. So that's what we've got to go in. Now, the reason that the board looks a bit weird is obviously they've taken all the RAM off. So what happened was the client sent the board in, sent the computer in, and I think he said it had been in his loft for 5 years. It was part of a job lot of machines that he'd bought years and years and years ago, I think from an ex-education establishment or something. And it worked back in the day, it worked, and then he's put it in his loft. And when he sent it in, he just assumed it worked. So obviously I gave the quote and everything on the assumption that I was going to basically turn it on to make sure it was working okay, do the work on the board, put the upgrades in, Bob's your uncle, but no, it didn't work when I turned it on. So, and as I say, that would have been a nice opportunity to flick the camera on, but I was just cheesed off last week, I really was, so I didn't. I wasn't even sure I was going to proceed with this, to be quite honest. It sounds a little bit melodramatic, but what with one thing and another that's going on at the moment, I was unsure whether I wanted to proceed with it at all. Now, the reason for that is that if you're going to add upgrades to a machine, quite dramatic upgrades as well, including the CPU, an accelerator for the CPU, which is, you know, can be a bit fussy with other upgrades, let's be honest about it. You want the host machine to be as solid and predictable as possible. You want it to work predictably. We don't want any intermittent faults, because once you start to pile upgrades into the machine, we're going to put this in here, we're going to put this here, we're going to put this on here, we're going to put this down here, we're going to put all this stuff in, and at any point one of these upgrades could cause an issue by virtue of the upgrade itself. And we don't want to be running around with sort of red herring issues which are actually caused by a problem on the board. So in any case, I used the SysCheck diagnostic tool, Jürgen's excellent SysCheck board, which normally is great with RAM problems. I assumed it was a RAM problem on the board, but I mean, you can't be sure. It could be a dead CPU. Because it was fairly easy to do, and the machine was utterly dead as well, it did have a video signal, but it wouldn't boot. So I thought, well, we'll put a socket under the CPU, because we're going to have to do that anyway. So I did that. It wasn't the CPU. So I thought, well, since I'm going to have to put sockets under most of these things, the GTIA was already socketed, but I knew that worked because we had a video signal. But I replaced the nasty socket under the GTIA anyway. Somebody had done work on this board before as well, which it also sets the alarm bells off. I don't like to see that. So there was lots of weird things about this board. It didn't work. It had been worked on before. Somebody put a socket under the GTIA chip. Somebody had been messing on with the MMU socket, etc., etc. So I really wasn't keen to proceed until I could get the thing working 100%. Intermittently, the syscheck board would work, but not consistently. Sometimes it would just boot to a black screen. Other times it would boot to the RAM test and tell me that such and such a DRAM was bad. So I replaced the DRAMs, put them in sockets that were indicated to be bad, and it still wouldn't boot consistently. And then eventually I put the SRAM board in, and it still wouldn't boot consistently. And so I thought, right, last ditch attempt, because I don't want to, if I invest an enormous amount of time in troubleshooting the thing and I still can't get it to work stably, we're not going to be able to proceed with the project, and I've wasted my time because I don't really want to charge a lot of money for, you know, a bad outcome. But what I did on the next morning, I flamethrowed all the RAM off the board. You can see I've managed to blister the board here, but I didn't care because the RAM was unnecessary anyway. We were definitely going to go with the SRAM solution. So all the RAM came off the board, and when I'd done that, finally the system started to boot consistently. Certainly when I gave this a good shove back in the socket as well, because these boards are always delivered with gobs of extra solder around the pin header legs, supposedly to give you extra firm contact in the CPU socket, but it often works in the opposite manner. But anyway, taking all the RAM off the board, so presumably one of the RAM chips, maybe in the extended bank as well, was causing problems with the data bus. So all the RAM came off, and finally I could turn it on, and it booted every single time. So with that done, finally I was happy to proceed. So I've put sockets in all the other things that we need to be socketed, because we're going to fit Spectre. We need the CD4050 socketed, we need the MMU socketed, the OS ROM for Ultimate 1MB, the Pokey chip. GTI didn't need to be in the socket, but it already was, and I replaced that one. Antic for VBXE, CPU for Rapidus, FREDDIE for the FREDDIE replacement board if we decide to go with that. It probably won't make any difference. And did all that, and of course, as I always say, after socketing each individual chip, test the system again, make sure it still works reliably, which it did. And I thought while I was about it, the power jack, because the whole thing went through the dishwasher as well, because the board was pretty covered in flux from the previous work, as well as the work I'd done on it with the sockets. So when I'd done all the socketing work, I put the thing through the dishwasher. I've put the factory patch on the back of the board as I did with the previous machine, just so that I can do a cleaner job of having 74 LSO8 in the socket. And as I say, the power jack looked a bit scratched up and ropey from the back, and same with the video jack. I didn't like the look of it. It looked like they'd been ridden hard and tied up wet for years on end. So I replaced those as well. The power jack, interestingly enough, didn't have the same footprint on the strain relief, but I think I've done a good job there. I just drilled a couple of holes further back in the board, and I've braced it there, so it's as solid as the original one. And same with the VBXE jack. So I've done the usual trick of I've removed the RF modulator, obviously. I have drilled an array of holes for the DIN 13 pins there, if you can see them. And we've got a lovely DIN 13 connector all ready to go. This is all the messy work. I've even done the hole in the back of the case for the DIN connector, so we don't have to mess around later on with all the mess and plastic shavings and dust and everything like that. So the board is looking pretty good, and most of the fitting work in terms of filing and drilling and stuff like that is done. I also sat for a few hours and I made up a load of 2 pont connectors here for all the various upgrades and the point-to-point wiring we're going to have to do. So aside from soldering some pins on the VBXE board and whatnot, what I'm hoping to do in this video is to just solder the ends of these wires to the appropriate places, put the connectors on, plug everything in, one thing at a time, test it after each one, see if it works, and just keep going until we hit a problem, or until we have a finished and totally working machine. Obviously, I'm expecting some sort of glitches once I put Rapidus in. I don't mean to say that that's necessarily a showstopper. I think we know what to expect now, the kind of behaviour we're going to see probably with, well, certainly in my case, I've never seen a machine that didn't exhibit some stability quirks with these two devices in the same computer. That's just a fact of life. The client knows about it, everybody knows about it. Everybody knows about it, and it's a shame. So that's just one of those things. So I'm not gonna be put off by that. So let's proceed. I'm just gonna solder a couple of headers onto these boards before we go find the DuPont housings for these cables, and then we will get started. Right, as per usual, I've done a little bit of work off camera because I'm finding it, since I have to use stronger glasses and magnification equipment now, it's a little bit difficult sometimes to show you in real time what I'm actually doing. So nevertheless, let's have a look at the board. So what I decided to do here, because what you'll find when you're installing a large amount of upgrades in a machine like this, is that several of the upgrades will require the same signals to be tapped off the board, so it's worth doing a bit of forward planning there. So in this case, obviously, we have Rapidus and the SRAM board, to name but two, and also we've got VBXE. Now VBXE requires, if I get the pin out correct here, yes, right, so on this header here, it requires the IRQ line, CAS inhibit, and external select. I might have them the wrong way around. And indeed I have, yes, external select on pin 2, CAS inhibit on pin 4. This requires external select. The SRAM board requires external select. We'll take the CPU off so we can see what I've done here. So there on the middle pin, the SRAM board requires external select as well. So they've got three things that require the external select signal. And I managed to pick that off down here, just behind this resistor. And I like to find vias on the board where possible. It just seems to make for a neater job. So what I've done is I've twined three wires together. I can bind these up with little bits of cable tie, of course, when I'm sure that everything works. Twisted three wires together there. They've all come off and gone to the relevant connectors. So we've got one for VBXE, we've got one for Rapidus, and we've got one wire soldered to the SRAM board. The way I look at it, I don't really like hard soldering wires to boards, but in this case, this is such a fundamental part of the board, it might as well be soldered on. Actually, it's because the board won't power up without this in it. So I've soldered them onto here. If these little pads were spaced at the normal pitch, we could just put a three-way header on here and have a connector like this on the end of the wires, but they're not, and they don't line up, and it tends to be a bit flimsy if you just put single pins on there with single header connectors. So that's what we've done anyway. So obviously the external select goes to there, there and there. Likewise, we've got the CAS inhibit signal that goes to two devices. That goes to VBXE and it goes to the RAM board. So that's the CAS inhibit signal is sourced from here. I thought I would get this out of the way now rather than faff on when we've got ribbon cables and stuff over the top of the board. I'm going to try and do it in a systematic fashion so that the stuff that's buried gets done first. We've also got math pack disable here. The via just on to the left of the Pokey chip, actually, where I picked up math pack disable, which is for the Rapidus. And the third wire on the Rapidus is actually going to go to one of the signal headers on the Ultimate 1 MB, because we can then turn the Rapidus on and off under software control with the correct plugin. So that's what we've got so far. And I've also started to wire up the DIN 13 connector for the VBXE monitor jack as well, because these are all fiddly jobs and I need to use a magnifier to get them done, and it's going to be no fun watching me do that. So as ever, what we need to do before we go any further, and I've put the VBXE adapter in because that's just passive at the moment, it's got the Antic chip sitting in it. I'm going to put the CPU back in, and of course we're going to turn it on again, and we're going to just make sure that everything's still working. There's no reason why it shouldn't, but just to be sure, to make sure we haven't shorted anything out with a piece of wire or something like that. Turn the computer on. There we go, and it boots. Lovely, lovely. As I've mentioned before, that monitor is very dark when it's first turned on. I think I need to do a recapping job on this one, but that we'll save that for another day. So everything still works. And most importantly, it still works with the replacement SRAM board. I've swapped the newer one in to replace the other one that didn't have the external select provision on it. So with all that done, I think the next thing we should put in the machine is the Spectre AV board, because this thing is going to get buried quite rapidly under ribbon cables and stuff, especially when the ultimate 1 megabyte goes in. So I think we should do that next. Now the connections for this are basically the same as for the UAV, so you can use the UAV manual to get hold of the connections. Yeah, we just need a little pin for this colour input here. So we can put that on a connector. For some reason I'd quite like it if Spectre could be completely pulled out of the board. Right, so on the back edge of the Spectre here, if we can actually read the legend, I can't, I'm going to have to get it in the magnifier. Composite sync, composite video, luma, and chroma, and colour in. Right, so we know what we're doing now. At least these headers are the double pitch, so you can get a 7-way connector on this thing. Right, so just put these connectors in every alternate hole. You'll see how this works out when I come to put the thing together. It'll make sense. There we go. So we've now got a nice 7-way header with the signals coming off the back. Now I happen to know that 2 of the connection points are at the back of these inductors here. Yeah, I want to use this composite sync pin for the VBXE output, so I need to make that one a little bit longer. Right, I think I've got the Spectre wiring done. This stuff here, I think this is luma. I can swap them if I got them the wrong way around. It's quite possible that I have. I actually referred to my own previous video to get this wiring. I should write it down, really should. Right, so I've got luma here, and these are going through these ferrite beads, of course. Composite video here, I think, and this is composite sync. This is colour in, rather chroma out, sorry. This is chroma out, and that's going down to this ferrite bead here. And this is the colour pick-off point, and that's on a single header here. So I've got to somehow get this all to fit in here. So if we push this in here, so we know that the colour input goes in here, like that. And these two on the back just need to, that would have been better if it had gone under the board, or actually round the side, I think. So we'll take that out, we'll route this around here. And now I'm assuming the jumper configuration is correct for the XE out of the box. Come on. Oh, God, I need 15 bloody fingers. Right, there we go. So that's plugged in. So if this doesn't work, it's probably because I've mixed up chroma and composite, I would imagine. Right, switching on. Whoa! Yes! There we go, it works. That is definitely correct. But yeah, as you can see, this is kind of the problem with the Spectre AV, in my opinion. I don't know whether this is cropped up on test machines when it was being developed or what, I don't know. But, I mean, there's very clear banding down the screen. The characters are, the definition of the graphics is much clearer. There's much more weight to the text, but we've still got this sort of washed out kind of banding down the screen here. And it's not, I haven't put the composite in the wrong pin, because what I'll do is I'll plug composite in and I'll take the S-video lead out, and we can just verify there that we've got composite video. The composite video is not bad, actually. It's a bit smoother than the S-video, but there it is anyway. It's an improvement, but it's not perfect, and you get a much better result with UAV, in my opinion. It's just better. But there it is anyway, and it is an improvement, but obviously the customer's getting VBXE anyway, so he's not going to be overly concerned with that. So I can go ahead now and finalise these connections. Slide me little bits of shrink fit tubing down the wire with immense difficulty. Right, so that's UAV installed. So I think the next thing we'll put in is VBXE actually, because that is a very fundamental kind of upgrade. I just want to move this capacitor a little bit as well. I'm just going to ease it at the solder side. But yeah, VBXE is a very invasive upgrade because it replaces the master clock. So I think we'll put that in next. So this is going to plug in here. Right, so I'm always surprised on a build like this when you plug something in and it doesn't crash into something else. So we've already got this header here, which is good. So we can plug this in. Now we need an extra two-way connection here for the clock signal. And if you're wondering why I've got these connectors on opposite way up, because these connectors actually have a little arrow marker which denotes pin 1. And since pin 1 is the one with the square pad on both of these connectors here, that's why I've done that, to differentiate between the two. There you go, just in case you wondered. So pin 3 is 14 megahertz. So we've got our clock circuit down here. We need to disengage that crystal. I mean, I could take the crystal off actually, but regardless of whether I do or not, I still need to disengage the connection and get rid of all these resistors and stuff because we don't need them. Now, actually having double checked the traces on the bottom of the board, this crystal does have to come off because it's still connected to the circuit at one end. Maybe I could have picked a different via to connect it to, but I'm just going to take the damn crystal off. Yeah, that was that via that I thought that via was still going to have connectivity to pin 2 of FREDDIE even after I took all this all the caps and resistors off. It doesn't. So I've just moved it to the pin where the actual original crystal sat. Oh, right, and at length it does work. So now the crystal on the VBXE board here is driving the whole system. It boots up, it works, and I think the next component we put in will be ultimate 1 megabyte, and then when that's in, we can actually test the VBXE output, because I think I've got all the signals that I need on this jack now to sample the RGB video. Quite a lengthy job, this one, even though I've done all this wiring beforehand. Just the sheer number of things, because even when we've got this in, we've got the Rapidus and the PokeyMAX to put in. Right, well this was a little bit more fiddly than I expected it to be. I'll show you why. Because of the way I've chosen to arrange these ribbon cables, I had to make a few changes to the Spectre AV board. I'll take that out and show you what I've had to do here, just to get everything to lie flat and not bunch up underneath the VBXE and push it up at the front. I'll go in a bit closer, I'll show you. Right, so you can see it had a row of headers on the top, these jumper pins here, and it had a plastic frame obviously around that header strip. So I've taken that off and I've trimmed these pins down a little bit so they haven't got, because they're already soldered in, so they didn't need the plastic support anymore. So I've taken that off, trimmed the pins down a little bit, sanded them, filed them off at the top to get the burrs off, and then I've put the jumpers back on. I wouldn't mind it even lower actually, but it's done the job. It's taken a good few millimeters off the height here. That just stops these headers from snaring up on the underneath of this ribbon cable here. So I'm quite happy with the result there. The only other way to do it would be to take these pins out completely and then just jumper it across the top with bits of wire, and that would really get it low. But I think this is a reasonable compromise. That's a bit risky taking these pins out. There's always a possibility you pull a via out of the board or something. So that then goes on the top of there. And then the VBXE then goes in here, like so. And that goes in there, that goes in there. So we've only got one more connection to make to VBXE, and that's between the Ultimate and the VBXE. And then we can actually see if we get a picture through the RGB port, so I think we'll do that next. So I should have a pre-prepared wire of the correct length, he said, I hope. Yeah, that one will do. And we've also got to fit the little wiring loom for the Ultimate as well. So we'll do that now. Okay, I've done the Ultimate 1MB connections. I'll show you from above. So I've followed the, if you've watched the previous video, I've followed basically the same approach with the connections here. I've taken the phase 2 clock from the cartridge port, the handy little spot. The reason being that will allow us to significantly influence the bus timing by changing this chip here, the 74 LS08, because that's the one that produces that buffered phase 2 clock. I used to take it straight from the CPU, but that kind of defeats the object, because if the objective is to cope with different upgrades that are having a fight and they're all running off the same phase 2 clock, obviously cartridges are going to be influenced by changing this chip. But if you connect the Ultimate 1MB to the buffered phase 2 clock, you can also influence the behavior of this board as well, just by changing this chip, which we might have to do later on when we install the Rapidus, for example. And I've also made the connection to the VBXE here, so that's the decoding address. I've hooked up this signal for the Rapidus. That'll be useful later on. So since we've done 2 upgrades at once, hopefully we don't end up in the weeds here, so let's give it a try. Oh god. Right, I don't know if you can see that, but we've got a dark red screen, unfortunately, so something's not right. Oh. Right, in a situation like this, you're going to be looking at the ribbon cables, because I've shortened these. I've basically remanufactured these ribbon cables to suit the layout. So it could be the ribbon cables, it could be these connections here. So let's double check that. So we should have a phase 2 clock here, that one. We should have reset there. No, that's not reset. That's halt. We know that's halt. We know we've got read write is that one. Which one is it? Yeah, pin 36. So at times like these, often I'm going to run off and try and find a known good set of ribbon cables. But actually, what I want to do first, just because it's a bit quicker, is I'm just going to try another board, because I don't know if this board works. I mean, I would hope it did, because that's what the client sent in. I'm going to grab another Ultimate board and try it, just to be sure, because if I pull all this out and start making new cables and stuff and it turns out to be the bloody board, I'm not going to be too happy. I'm just going to sort of hold the thing. It's just a rough test, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Let's give that a try. Ah, now we've got a working system. Is it just the flash ROM that's knackered? So what we'll do now, we'll swap the flash ROM from the working board and try it in the other one. Ugh, God, this has been fiddly as hell, this one so far. Right, turn it on. Ah, yeah, the flash ROM is toast. There was just the flash ROM in this Ultimate all along. Oh well, great. Oh dear me. Something else, the client neglected to mention that the Ultimate 1MB was buggered. Well, unless it got damaged on the way to the UK, I don't know. Right, so it works. So I'm going to try the VBXE output now. And we do. Brilliant. So we're on the RGB signal now, so the legacy jack isn't even plugged in at all, and we have a picture over the VBXE output. Brilliant. Right, good. Got that connector stiff. Oh, blimey. Oh, I suppose better too tight than too loose. I think before we go off and try the Rapidus, I think we should put the PokeyMAX in the board, because that needs quite a few connections to the address bus. All the address lines that we need are up here. So I think we'll wire that up first. And of course it's got the quad Covox core on it, and I'm going to have to change that because I want the key click. Right, so let's get these headers soldered onto the PokeyMAX, wire everything up. Right, I've done quite a lot of work in the interim. I've actually cleaned the desk because this being the last job of the year, I'm kind of keen to get finished. But so I did, as I mentioned, the address bus quite usefully appears on these little vias here right next to the cartridge port. So we've taken A4, which is on the right, and A7, which is on the left, and we've fed them into the PokeyMAX here. We've got also, which is sourced from a little capacitor down underneath this ribbon cable, we've got the GTI audio, which is where you get your key click and such, and we've got that fed into here. And then we've got the audio caps on 2 wires coming from the left and right audio channels, and they're going down to the underside of the DIN 13 cable. I've put the board in the bottom case here because I don't want to disturb the wiring here. I've finalised the DIN 13 wiring here, and I've put all the shrink fit tubing on it, heated it up, and bent it so it doesn't get squashed when you put it in the case. But obviously if you lie it on the desk, it's going to put undue stress on the connection, so I'm keeping it in the case now. So anyway, PokeyMAX is in. I did use this to update the firmware here. I've put the, I think it's the correct one anyway, this is an MO4 chip, and I've got the stereo and Covox core. It came with a quad Covox core, which I think is quad, stereo and Covox. You need an extra address line with quad Pokey, you need an A5 as well, and that there isn't room to feed in the GTI audio with that. So I don't think it's going to need quad Pokey. I think it's far more useful to have all of the audio sources coming through the DIN 13 connector. I've also put the FREDDIE replacement in here. That's got a little LED that turns on to show you that the clock's okay, which is a nice touch. And obviously everything's sitting quite nicely now because we've took that Spectre AV board down a little bit. So beyond this, the only thing to put in is the repeaters. But before we do that, I think we'd better test the machine again. We'll use the VBXE output, I guess. Why not? I might get sick of me turning the thing off and on all the time just to test it, but I think it's a sensible step. So there we go. We haven't got a profile, an Ultimate 1 MB profile set up yet. We'll need the keyboard in for that. But yeah, as you can see, we've got this nice little LED there. Isn't that a nice touch? Because it's meant to be kind of a diagnostic tool as well, this thing. You can just pop it in a dead machine, supposedly, and it'll tell you whether the master clock's working, etc. But yeah, the VBXE video looks very nice. What we're going to have to do now is pop the repeaters in and see if that's going to cooperate. So let's take the CPU out. Now of course this repeaters is going to sit on top of the SRAM board, and there's lots of cables and stuff all over the place here. Right, so it's going to go in here. It's a bit of a faff. Yeah, there we go. It's in, CPU in, NCR CPU, so that's going to be good. And this little wire here should pop in here. Oh, there's wires all over the bloody place. Right, pop that in there. Like that. And then this one can go underneath. The main thing I worry about actually with setups like this is just something not seating properly, because if there's even the slightest disturbance or just something not really being seated firmly in the socket, you're just going to have all kinds of problems, intermittent issues all the time. It still boots, so let's plug the keyboard in and see if we can configure things. I might have the little repeaters wire in the wrong place. Go in here, see if we can set a profile up in the. We'll set the date, Friday the 13th. That doesn't bode well for today's experiments. So we can see the audio is coming through okay, no problem. So it's sensed VBXE as well, that's good. I keep meaning to release a version of the plugin for the Ultimate 1 MB. And remember, these things are only plugins. The base firmware of the Ultimate 1MB has no awareness whatsoever of stereo, PokeyMAX, VBXE, Covox, anything at all. It's all plug-in based. So I had some people that were using, I think, either VBXE 1 or VBXE with the, I think it's the VGA core, and it doesn't identify itself in the normal manner for some reason. Why that's my fault, I don't know, but never mind. So the switching of the VBXE doesn't work. I know people can write their own plugins if they want to. I mean, I've got no objection to making a version that doesn't rely on hardware detection to expose this setting. Right, we'll turn that on. What firmware have we got here? Because this is the chip out of the other board, isn't it? Where we're on version 4.2. Well, that's reasonably recent. Right, let's see. We've only got SO and S1. So to get some control over Rapidus without actually flushing the plug-in, for now, we can move this to S1. Let's see. Rapidus should now be on S1, and using reverse logic, so off's on and on's off, we should be able to control it and turn it on. And we're going to have to change the PBI ID as well to avoid Rapidus. So let's do a cold reboot. There we go, Rapidus is loading. Core loading. Oh, hey, it works. It works. That's completely fantastic. Now if we press the reverse video key and press the reset key, we get the Rapidus setup menu. We haven't got any birdies on the screen or anything like that. That's brilliant. Excellent. Excellent. I mean, I've kind of made me peace with this upgrade now, you know. I mean, I didn't dislike it in the first place. And even the problems, which I'm sure we can replicate here, it wasn't that was a particular showstopper, if you like. I mean, it was just one of those things. It never got fixed, but it wasn't that. It was the relentless gainsaying of every assertion I made about this. Oh, there's a little problem here and there's a little problem there. And it was, oh, well, you've installed it wrong, you've done this, you've done that. See my Rapidus You're Fired video if you want to know more about that and how that all came about. But I've got nothing against the upgrade itself. I'm not too sure how I feel about accelerators and things like that. It's not. I don't have like a burning desire to increase the speed of the machine. But I love the moving logo at the top. It's great. Okay, so anyway, that's probably reasonably good in its default state. And this is the boot screen with Conrad's 65C816 operating system, which is very good. It's polling each drive as you move the cursor down. That's interesting. Design suggestion here: if you press the arrow key and keep it pressed down, you could skip the polling, because if you're trying to target a particular drive, you don't really care. Probably it polls every single time you press the key. I would have had a delay there where maybe wait half a second or a second when you land on a drive before it actually starts to poll it. That's it. That's a feature suggestion. Maybe there's a reason why it doesn't do that, but this is all very, very good indeed. Oh, we're going to have to enable Sparta-DOS X, aren't we? That's right. Well, it is on. Why didn't it boot? So we've got the side 3 PBI BIOS. Dare we try one of the cartridges in it? Oh, dear me. So we're running at 20 megahertz now. We should be. Oh, dear me. We've got a problem. Uh-oh.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
We've got some corruption on the screen. Oh, dear me. Look at this down here. Oh, dear. Right. Time to break out the 74FO8 chips, I think. This is the reason I don't like doing these builds with Rapidus. Just because you always get something like this. Certainly if there's an ultimate board in the machine. I mean, you saw yourself, it worked absolutely perfectly before we put this accelerator in. And now we've obviously got something skew with timings here, because we've got anti-corruption and all sorts of things. So I'm going to try and put this chip in. So we haven't got any corruption on the screen this time. I'm going to have to buy some more 74FO8 chips at this rate. So let's try that again. Core's loading. Oh shit, it's crashed. Oh God! Oh God! So there you are, there you are. This is absolutely typical. What was I saying a minute ago? That I've got no objection. Well, I've got any objections. I just wish it would work. So I've done the only thing I can really do, which is put a Motorola 74FO8N chip in place of the 74LS08 chip, and it's still not behaving itself. Oh, it's fucking worse. Jesus. Just an utter living nightmare. But the customer wanted it in. I've done what he wanted. I've put the fucking thing in the machine. There, it's decided to boot that time. So I still want paid. I'll give him both chips. He can try either one. Oh, it's still fucked up. Right, so the 74F08 has not done anything good. That looked a bit better. So that's interesting. This FREDDIE replacement, I don't want to sort of call it yet, but I've took this FREDDIE replacement out and the thing's behaving better. That's strange. Maybe all isn't lost yet. And it's booted again. So this thing appears to actually make the situation worse. And why did Sparta-DOS-X not boot that time? Oh my god. Oh, I can't get into the... Bloody Jesus Christ. I can't get into the ultimate setup menu now. Alright, Sparta-DOS-X no longer responds at all. Yeah, this is a complete nightmare as usual. Complete nightmare. Let's try the 74F08 chip with the original FREDDIE chip. And no, I'm not going to try the O2 fixer. Fuck that. Right, now we can get into here again. Sparta-DOS-X is enabled, so let's reboot, see if the Rapidus core loads. And we get Sparta-DOS-X again. So you can see what an absolute living nightmare this is to try and get to work. I don't even see the point of trying it with the Side 3 cartridge. I don't know if the client's actually got one or not, but the chances of it working are slim to nil. What I tend to find to be the most reliable version, which is version 1. Ugh. Pressed L, nothing happened. Sparta-DOS-X is not working again. The loader started now. Everything seems to work. Now this is a version 1 Side 3, so if you can get hold of one of these, this is the one to get in my opinion. Let's try Space Harrier. Of course this is running under the 65C816 operating system and it works perfectly well. There's nothing about the loader that's actually incompatible with it. Where's Space Harrier? Let's try that. I don't know if Space Harrier runs with at this speed, but what? Oh Christ, that was quick. Yeah, working pretty good. Graphics are all fucked up. That's probably because of the interrupts. That's to be expected, I suppose. So can we go back in here? Yes, we can. Can we go back in here? I mean, yeah, it's sort of all right. It's let's do a read-write test. Yes. Whoa! Look at that. Now this is my fat DOS that's built into the Side 3 loader, so when you start an executable, it installs the little DOS in the normal DOS memory space, and that gives you CIO access through this device here to the fat partition on the card. And by God, look how blisteringly fast it is, because of course it all runs in RAM, the fast RAM on the Rapidus. Look at that, it's all CPU driven, because of course we can't do DME write with Side 3, that never worked for some reason. But 363 kilobytes a second reading from the drive. That is very, very good. I want to try that again actually. Incredible. Whoa! That is very impressive, very impressive. You know, that's almost inspired me to get me Rapidus back out again and and have another play with this, because it's a lot of fun. 363 kilobytes a second reading from the card. And that's not using DMA at all. Because DMA, the transfer rate's about 1.7 megabytes per second, but then you got the sort of fat chain overhead and stuff like that. But this is including seeking through the fat to find free clusters and stuff like that. That's brilliant. Lots of fun. That's given me quite a bit of a buzz, that has. And then of course we could try RWCRC to see if the to see if the hard disk integrity is all there. This should be pretty quick as well. We'll let that run and we'll see what happens, because I mean, yeah, there's definitely some quirks with this system, but I might hook up the O2 clock signal straight to the CPU as well, and I'll give the customer 2 DuPont connectors and he can swap them. I'll leave the troubleshooting to him, and he can swap them and try what's what. You might put a multi-cartridge in the machine that's different to this one. He might have different problems. So we'll do that. Because that's about the only thing I can suggest. You can either take the O2 clock from the buffered source, which is the BO2 source, or you can take it from the CPU itself, unbuffered. That's the only things I can change. That's all I can change. I mean, I don't want to change the CPU because the NCR CPUs are pretty much the most compatible with Rapidus. I think it's generally accepted. So I don't want to change the CPU. I don't want to take anything else out of the system that's already there. So other than that, all I can do is change the 74FO8 chip. That FREDDIE module, that appears to do absolutely nothing for the stability of this system. So the customer's just going to get that back. So yeah, there's quite a few things he bought and provided here that just aren't going to get used. We've got the original SRAM board, we've got the P-Covox board, we've got the FREDDIE replacement board, and none of them are going to go into the machine at all. So I'll time-lapse this anyway, let it run. I mean, it's written the test file already, absolutely fantastic. I think the test file is several megabytes in size. It's a big file, and this normally takes absolutely ages. I mean, like half an hour or more to write the file out and then read it back. But it's already written the file. Now it's reading it back to see if the CRC checksums are correct. The concept of Rapidus, even the execution of it, absolutely great. I know Conrad keeps having digs at me all the time, so I'm not earning any points by being nice to him. But I mean, I admire his software. I've always thought, with a possible exception of me, he writes the best sort of utility software and firmware and tools like that. I love the way he designs nice user interfaces. He's part of the Spectre project. Can't change that. I'm not going to change my opinion about that at all, regardless of how rude he is to me on the forums. And I still haven't got an answer yet. He mentioned on the forum a few months ago that I still hadn't fixed the bugs in F-Disk and the last word.
Down here, salt is a way of life.
Obviously, the environment down here is all salt. The ceiling's salt, the floor is salt, the walls are salt.
Because once upon a time he used to use my word processor. I think he's abandoned it now. It's probably too toxic and poisonous for him. But bugs in the last word, I wasn't aware of any specific bugs or which ones he was referring to, and asked him what they were, and he never ever got back to me about it. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that if he can't actually specify what the bugs are. But anyway, I'm getting off the beaten track. I really admire his stuff anyway, even though he can be a bit of an arsehole at times, but I suppose we can all be a bit of an arsehole. Oh, well, it looks like it worked. Well, anyway, RWCRC, I think there was a keystroke left in the buffer, and it's gone straight back to the loader. Oh well, not to worry. I should have watched more closely. Maybe I can catch a freeze frame of the result. Just for a laugh, I think the last thing we'll try here. Right, it has to be. Yes, it's the purple side 3, the purple board side 3, this piece of shit. Right, let's put it in. I say that purely because of the go-in CPLD, and they don't have go-in CPLD. And why the fucking thing can't go in the machine? For some reason, these boards are hopeless. And the case is absolutely come apart as I've put it in the back. Just cheap shit. Right, let's have a look at this. Whoa, with the side 3.2 in, the system is completely locked up. Let's try that again. Yeah, that's absolutely not working for shit. This thing. Side 3.2, purple PCB, go in CPLD. Dead loss. Utter dead loss. Side 3.0, remarkably functional in this Rapidus system. So yeah, I'm very, very impressed with the I/O speeds, of course. Really fantastic. Gives us a little bit of a taste of what it would have been like if the DMA on side 3 had ever worked, as far as writes are concerned. Whether that'll ever happen or not, I don't know. Pretty much given up at this point, to be quite honest with you. I don't know if anybody's buying the things that Candle put on PCBWay. I receive very little communication, and I haven't had time to do anything on firmware and stuff like that. And I'm trying to think about how to proceed going forward with that particular situation. Income from that's pretty much dried up now. I'm just pottering about with it as and when I please, because that's the capacity. I'm not beholden to anybody now apart from the users, in a sense, to keep supporting things. But anyway, I'm going to make another video about, I think, what happened this year. I think we should have a roundup video summarising the events of the year. So there it is anyway, there's the machine basically finished. It's a bit yellow, but I mean, there's not much we can do about that. Hopefully the owner will be happy with this outcome. I'll give this a little bit of a clean before I give it back. I can't remember if this particular client was interested in the aftermarket keyboard, which I was going to start producing. I'm still hoping to do so, but I'm so far behind with stuff like that, it doesn't bear thinking about. I do have a spare keyboard for an XE, in fact. I'll talk to him about that anyway. I can't remember whether it was him who was thinking of getting the keyboard replaced. Because if he did, that would pretty much solve most of the yellowing issues with this computer. Most of it seems to be concentrated on the keyboard. And of course, if it was the summer, I would have had this thing in the garden with the peroxide on it and it would all be fine. But it isn't the summer. And if you've been watching the channel recently, you'll have known that the house got flooded. Well, the living room got partially flooded last weekend when we had terrible, terrible storms in the UK. And I've got the loss adjuster coming out next week to have a look, so we're going to be very busy with that. And there's quite a lot of DIY jobs that have piled up since I did the bathroom up, which I think was back in September. So like I've said on the Facebook page that I run, I'm going to close now, but I still am going to make a couple of videos to keep us going over the festive period, and then hopefully we'll be back in January, to the back end of January, after I've done my books and whatnot. But it's been a mix. I mean, this morning I woke up to find that I'd been sent an electricity bill from Eon Next for a house that I sold 18 months ago, and received the final bill, which was actually a refund because they'd kept sending estimated bills for that long that the account had run up a credit of about 800 quid. I only got about 580 of that money back, but now they've come and asked me for 317 quid. Fuck you!
I love you guys. Don't get me wrong. It's all about this. But for the first time in my life, I'm 18 and I can say, fuck you!
But that's just the kind of crap that you have to put up with on a day-to-day basis, as I'm sure you're aware. But yes, there's going to be lots going on. We'll see how it goes next year anyway, because money has become a big issue here. My wife had some time off work with a health condition, and then there was some more argy-bargy with her employer, but fortunately she was paid throughout. But things look very uncertain at the moment, obviously, with the events that happened this year.
But for the fuck's sake.
Even more uncertain, and obviously we need to have money, because it's not as cheap as I thought it was going to be. Not living in rented property anymore. It's still expensive even when you own your own house. So we'll just have to see. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'll save all that chit chat for the other video. In the meantime, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I ended on a bit of a positive note, I think, because we've got a Rapidus machine here that kind of works with lots of different upgrades in it. But yeah, I've got my extra strong glasses on, as you can see. But yes, I want to thank everybody for their support this year. It's been a difficult year in some ways, but certainly the lion's share of the comments that I received on a couple of videos in particular were overwhelmingly supportive, I have to say, and I really do appreciate that. And I appreciate, of course, the patrons and the way they stick around and have faith in the channel. That's really great, and it's helped enormously, because obviously what a component of my monthly income has just vanished now completely. I haven't worked it out yet or checked it yet, but it seems that the last of the firmware payments from Lothara came in last month, and that would have been for October. So I'm assuming that he's completely sold out now of the Incognito Gold and the last of the side 3 cartridges. I believe he made 50 incognito goals, but anyway, that's all done and dusted with now, so that's so the firmware side of things is completely donation based at the moment. I'm going to have a think about that going forward. I don't like to make changes to things that have always been free to download, but honestly I'm going to have to think about that, because it's become such an enormous project and a huge undertaking, particularly maintaining the loader for this thing, that it's just doing it as a spare time thing. That would work if I had spare time and I just felt in the mood, but at that point it would just be, do I feel in the mood to do it? Have I got the motivation to sit and tinker with this software? Well, lately I haven't had time, and we've got a lot going on at the moment, obviously with what happened to the house last week. And I've let the DIY jobs build up. So I'm going to be, when I'm off over Christmas and the New Year, I'll have to do my books, do my accounts, my self-assessment. That only takes a day or two. Get that out of the way. And the rest of the time is going to be getting the kitchen done and this, that and the t'other. And so we'll just have to see. But anyway, I really do appreciate all the support and all the nice words, and all the regulars who crop up in the comments. It's really great, so thank you very much indeed. I'll wish you all the best for the Christmas and New Year period, just in case the next video doesn't come out before Christmas. It may come out between Christmas and New Year, whatever, I don't know. But I'm going to go in, edit this one, and thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks to everybody. I really appreciate all the kind words that I've had over the course of the year. Thank you very much. Bye bye for now, and I'll see you in the next video.